Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're watching this, you probably like espresso, and I'm about to show you a way to resurrect an old espresso machine. This is one a great friend of mine gave me. He just didn't feel like fixing it, and I was fortunate enough to be a good enough friend that he gave it to me. And you can probably find these kinds of things on eBay in used condition. People just don't want to deal with fixing them, or even a garage sale. And in this case, it's a Silvia. This is like a $2,000 espresso machine that I'm going to attempt to repair with about $100 worth of parts. I have a cowel, which is basically just an attractive piece of trim that has like parts that are falling off and we don't want in our coffee. And then what we believe to be the problem is a bad pressure valve. So if I open up the top, you can see in here, this guy right here, and I ordered these parts on espressoparts.com. I'm not sponsored, I just want to share the resource. That came out to about $100 between the two pieces. I'm gonna go ahead and just show you how to remove these and replace, and hopefully it works, we'll see. So first step was to remove the 4 Phillips screws in these corners. You can see the holes where those came from, and that pops the top off. And then we have two things we need to work with here. We have a collar nut, which is on two ends of this threaded piece coming out of the machine and into the valve. Then we have the valve that we also have to hold still. So I'm using a 15 mil on the inside, and I didn't have a metric big enough, but a 3/4 fits pretty good on the outside. And I'm gonna try to separate these two and try to move this nut independently and get those pieces. Well, I did get them loosened up. There's no way to turn them independent from pulling these pieces off, so I'm gonna remove those next. And if I have to, I'll pull the wires off. I really don't wanna have to mess with the wires. Just don't wanna put them back in the wrong spot, but I will if I have to. We'll see what goes on here. Being the old machine that this is, you can see that hose back there is turning if I don't hold it still. So I need to get a good grip on it here with the pliers, and use a 13 mil open end wrench to undo the connection. Okay, got the water line removed. I'm gonna use my angled needle nose to pull off. There's a spring retaining clip that's holding this hose onto this end here. Okay, I got that spring retainer taken off. You can kind of see it right down there. I'm gonna use this fine long pointed screwdriver with a flat tip on it to try to push that hose off of the nipple there. See, now that I got that off, I can see it was actually a very rough cut from the factory, and it was barely hanging on there. Before I reinstall that, I'm gonna cut it nice and straight so we can get a full secure fit on. Well, I lied. It was actually the hose tore off while I was prying. It is like brittle, dead rubber here. So I'm gonna cut that hose a little shorter to where the rubber's fresh and not stretched out, and looks like we probably will prevent a premature blowout at the same time. And as with most repairs, nothing is ever as easy as you initially expect. I am gonna have to pull these cables off because this piece needs to spin around. I'm also gonna need to remove this water line here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark these with tape with numbers on it so that I know what goes where. Okay, easier than using tape. I just marked them with a Sharpie. You can see I have an X on those pieces, I have an O there, a Y there. I have 1, 2, 3. I have B1, B2 down below, and that way I won't mess things up. Okay, I got the wires out of the way, and in the process, I learned that a lot of these connectors are just toast from the heat. Look at how fragile that is. So not to worry, you could redo all those. This is just the insulation. I'd be more concerned if the wires were deteriorating like that. And you know, this is probably just from the immense heat this is constantly under. Kind of makes me think of the safety of car wiring. And the 1980s, what was it, a Mercedes that was built with biodegradable wiring harnesses, and how many of those had electrical failures. So what I'm gonna do when I put it back together is use some liquid electrical tape to just make sure that the insulation on these is sufficient so that nothing is arcing. Okay, I removed this nut, and this is copper tubing, so I bent it backwards just to get it out of the way. And now this should have enough space to clear and get removed. Okay, I got the new part on the right. Pretty much, I mean, it's identical aside from just being newer and cleaner. And surprisingly, there's no pipe thread sealant or anything like that on there. But what I did find inside, you can kind of see inside there, there's a copper washer. And it did come with some copper washers. I imagine since copper is a soft metal, that's what they're using to seal this without contaminating your coffee with thread sealant, which is a good thing I noticed. That otherwise I would have done thread sealant, and that would have been delicious, I'm sure. That'd be kind of neat to open up the old one and see what's going on. And what I see in here primarily is just a bunch of gunk and buildup. And I just imagine that was probably getting in the way of the valve completely seating itself with the spring. So I hope we're in good shape now. We'll find out. Oh, and I will keep these parts. I, in fact, think you can clean this. I'm guessing worst case scenario, if they stop making these, I'd like to at least have another backup. Since this is open, I'm just gonna clean off any mineral deposits on any of the extra connections. Now it's nice and shiny. I'll do the same here. You know, when we put this back together, we don't want those mineral deposits getting in the way of the seal. Okay, we're getting there. I've got the wire retaining clip on, and this is hand tight. I'll do a final wrench tightening after I get this last hose on, and I did clean the minerals off of that as well. Okay, got everything tightened on. One thing to be really careful of is this, this hose down here. If you have not enough slack, it'll kink, and that's gonna get in the way of water volume. So I made sure to push the hoses back in so that there's a nice even bend on there. And then just remember not to pull on these too much after you reassemble it. Okay, while this is open, I'm gonna go ahead and get the cowel installed. You can see down here where my finger kind of is coming through in the light. That's where on the top, you're gonna put one of these face down, and it's gonna pinch coming up from the bottom with this screw. Now, the set that I ordered did not come with the screws, although it did come with these nuts. So be sure to save these screws from your old pieces. And you should just be able to screw those in hand tight, and that should hold. These little nuts need to go over the top of these pieces here. I don't know why it's not installed that way, but they don't go on easy. They're supposed to grip it, so you kind of need to hammer them on. I just put this on top, and I whacked that with the back of the screwdriver because we're dealing with plastic here. I do think a hammer is probably overkill. Okay, you can see got it screwed in. I noticed if you screw too tight, the screws tend to push themselves off, so just get it snug enough. And boy, that's a lot sharper looking. Look what was there before. We had chrome flaking off of it. All right, I've already started assembling this rat's nest, and boy, am I glad I marked them. I'm already having issues even with them marked. I can't find some of them, but I know they're in there. Just got to keep looking for those numbers. I'm imagining some of these pieces got broken off, so I may have to guess on some based on the wire direction. All right, confidently got those back where they're supposed to go. Do not take those wires off unless you mark these. And I didn't actually miss any markings. Some of them are just dark. You can see the O on there and the O on there, so they lined up. But I do need to do something about this. So I'm gonna go get some liquid electrical tape and touch up here and there. Some dude online just posted a negative comment on my video about why use liquid electrical tape? It's gonna make it so you can't get your 10mm socket on this electrical port. I'm like, bro, the audacity. You actually think I know where my 10mm sockets are? Come to think of it, I don't even know where the liquid electrical tape is either. There we go, this stuff right here. Ooey gooey, you're gonna make a mess with this, but sure makes it a lot easier than dealing with heat shrink or electrical tape and on things that you don't need to worry about having a little bit of a mess. But yeah, we're gonna get it all over these exposed metal pieces so we don't get any arcs and blow fuses or cause fires. Okay, putting it all back together, and we'll know if this thing works in no time. All right, moment of truth. Let's see if this thing works. Let it just sit in there, get the heat back up again. So far, so good. I'll say that looks like a nice espresso. Let's see. Oh yeah. Go find yourself one of these that needs to get repaired. Spend $100. Fix it. You will be very happy. That is awesome. Thanks for tuning in. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up below and feel free to share this and comment if you have any questions. I do a lot of DIY things in very many categories. So if you like this kind of thing, please follow along by subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in.